and thank you so much for joining us today as we reflect together on a topic that can sometimes cause a little summertime angst, and that's the topic of vacations. We thought we would just dive into a conversation here and open up some of the complexities that can arise for families as we, plan vacations and, especially in the adoption constellation, thinking if you have an open adoption, how vacations might include your, adoptee or, if you're an adoptee and, you're an adoptive parent rather, how that might include your child's birth parents. We thought this would be a really great topic. One thing that I discovered as I did some coaching around this topic with another birth mom is it's not always so much what the birth parent and the adoptee feel. Sometimes it's also important, or it's always important to think about the other people involved too. So it's not just the dynamics of maybe, hey, we're planning a vacation as a family. Would you like to join us? Right? It's not just between them and us, it's also between, well, who else will be there? And what are the dynamics in the relationship between me and them? And, as we reflect together, I thought this would be a really good topic because there's so many different things going on. One of the things that we spoke a lot about is the stories attached to it, right? What is my story about this vacation that we're about to go on? It might be very different than what my adoptee's story is, or what my, other children's stories are, or what the adoptive parents' stories are. And as I thought, with her and we reflected on this, there's a lot of things going on at the same time, a lot of people's feelings, a lot of people's own, stories that they're envisioning are going to happen. So here, Sally, I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the ways that you've encountered that and some of the ways that you've also helped to make it less, unknown or chaotic.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you talking about individual stories and expectations. I
Mm.
think one thing I've learned through coaching and then also with our own family when it came to vacationing or interacting with birth families, that the expectation piece is huge. And the
Mhm.
first time that we were going to engage with our child's birth family, we talked about some parameters around the vacation itself. And so, for instance, everybody knew and agreed that the first meeting, because this was going to be the first time together like that. And it wasn't that our child was going to be alone with the birth family at this point, because we were all getting to know each other a little bit. We said, okay, we're going to start with somewhere kind of neutral, like meeting at a restaurant, is what we
Yeah.
decided. And then it was going to be about, oh, an hour and a half to 2 hour meeting. And then we were all going to, go back to the hotel and each to his or hers, their own rooms, and just kind of decompress, relax, and then meet up again. And then it was a water park experience. And
Hmm.
that's nice too, to be able to have, you know, sort of things to do that are interactive, but also kind of, you can kind of go off on your own, a little bit down a water slide, for instance, and things like that. So it's not that intensity of, let's say, going to a campground and everybody being at the campsite and everybody doing the marshmallows and everybody doing the
Hmm.
s'mores. This sort of this separate but together kind of
Yeah.
feeling. And then checking in with, for us as adoptive parents, it was a lot of checking in with our child. Hey, how's it going? Do you need a little more of a break, or you want to go re-engage? So that they had more control over the situation. Because that
Mm.
to me is what's pivotal, is how is this child experiencing this? And
Hmm.
by doing this, and we made it short too, it wasn't a week long deal. It was, 2 days.
Mm.
And that way we were able to kind of tip, put our toes in the water, so to speak, get a
Mm.
feel for it. And then as time went on, we did wind up even spending a holiday together at the birth parents' house. And so it expanded, but by doing it slowly and
Mm,
introducing it in a way that where there was options for sort of retreating for a while. And that the not only did we know that, but the birth parent knew that, and there was a lot of um, joint planning. And I that's one thing I really appreciated too was
mm,
that sensitivity around um, planning this. And the birth parent was very aware and open. And we were talking one day, ladies, I think I told you this, that for the Christmas holiday, we're talking about summer vacations, but for Christmas holiday, we did wind up at, like I said, staying overnight and everything together. And the birth parent had put out pictures along, just a few in the house to, and what a sign of welcome that was. What a sensitive, aware thing that was. And so when adoptive parents and birth parents work together like that,
mm.
it can really make a big difference. And it wasn't all smooth sailing to say, but it was probably as good as it could have been, especially that first the summer thing, when the first thing we did was summer.
And you reflect back a lot of what I hear on the other end from the moms who go on the vacations, who say that it felt so good to know ahead of time what was going to happen. That felt safe. And being in a public place felt safe. And they also shared the need for a little bit of alone time with their child, where they didn't have to feel like maybe the adoptive parents were watching them. And
Mhm.
that's scary. That's when things get, a little bit, the trust factors come in, but yet it's so healing for them to be able to not feel like they're on the spotlight and to have that special time with their child. And I know Sharon has some really interesting perspectives to put on that as well.
Well, I guess my perspective, personal perspective, I should say, because I have coached some individuals who had small children and were trying to seek or find the birth mother. That wasn't always like a given track. So
Mhm.
I've had some experiences with that, but because I was in a closed adoption, my experience with my first love, I used to call her, because I really never had a chance to meet her.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I felt like I was worried a lot about how our relationship would have been as a child. My adopter, unfortunately, um, didn't use language, but sort of had a way of communicating that this was an area we wanted to investigate. So there's like guardrails around the idea of even engaging with a parent. And so it set up kind of like an ambiguous loss within me
Mhm.
because I had a sort of a sadness or grieving about that whole thing that I carried around most of my life. And I felt like really it undermined my identity because I didn't know exactly what that entailed. So having that interaction, like Sally was talking about, with the parent and having that involvement and having some part of the menu and the ingredients for the menu be actually the birth family as well as the adopter and adoptive family and siblings and everybody all together in one pot sounds like amazing experience to me. I finally, as an adult, was able to do some stuff and work on my reunion to find out exactly where my identity um, placed me in society and what kind of a system, incorporated their environment and their lives. And so I was really curious about and apprehensive about the connection that I would be making with my family. And, I have to say, from a person who has not had that exposure as a child, I sort of felt like I was stepping into a room of broken glass.
Mm.
I didn't know exactly what to expect. And I think a lot of adoptees who haven't had that experience early on are sort of tentative about the interaction that they're going to have. Um, at the same time, when I finally had a face to face interaction, holding and knowing them, it felt like I was home. I had that big sense of finally um, not having answers to the questions I had carried around my whole life. So the our melting pot looked like 17 people when I got through adding all the folks in. And I can't say that it was a panacea that I thought it was going to be. In some areas, it was a Pandora's box. so we had both dynamics happening at the same time. And out of the 17, there ended up being 4 people that are kind of like at an arm's length that I can interact with as I choose. 10 people who had fear-based relationships and interactions. It was not anything I felt comfortable with, and only 2 that came to the surface, and I have strong bonds with now, to helping me to understand who I am and who I'm not. So it's been an interesting thing. And we have taken vacations together. So it's been nice getting to have that experience and exposure. Unfortunately, the parents that we all had are now gone. So we didn't have that element to it. It's just us as adults being able to decide what our interaction was going to be and how deep and far we were going to take it.
Hmm. Yeah, wow. There's so much stuff there. That was really helpful, to give us that insight too from the other perspective. And me too, I had a closed adoption, so I often think like, wow, what kind of things would we have done? And I also would have appreciated the knowing, in such an unknowing situation to just have a schedule or some way of knowing what's ahead would have given me so much peace. And I think I see that too with moms who want to know when they're going to get updates. That same knowing, being given, a calendar or a schedule is so, so helpful. So thank you so much for, again, opening up a great conversation, about just being willing to explore things more from another perspective as we step into even something as simple as a summer vacation. Thinking about what are the other stories that are going into this and how maybe can I make this a little bit easier by the things that I contribute in the way that I show up, in this relationship. So thanks
Yeah.
again. And, do you have anything to say before we close, Sally?
Well, yeah, just one quick response. What I'm hearing is how much influence or control, maybe over control, an adoptive parent has.
Mhm.
Like you said, Sharon, just even if an adoptive parent even has the look or the communication that you can't ask about your birth family, let alone go on vacation with them, or you know or like Kim, you were saying, getting updates. So that would certainly be, an adoptive parent thing. And so I think for us as adoptive parents, we really could benefit from working on um being more open to our children's experience, especially around their first families and their birth parents, letting them explore that, taking steps to connect them with their first families and their birth moms, and being with them on the journey. But and even Kim, when you said being able to have a little alone time with your birth mom, I know some parents where they'd give alone time, or the younger kids, I'm talking younger kids now, like age 8, 10 or so, go
Mhm.
shopping with them at the mall.
Yes.
Just that time to be alone, that we, sure, it might feel scary to us, maybe not so much on the safety level as just on the, are they gonna love me the same when they get back from the mall?
Very
Are
real.
they
Yep.
gonna,
Real stuff there.
sort of
Yeah.
addressing those
Mm.
insecurities we might have, and trusting that yes, they will love us, and there's plenty of room in the heart to
Mhm.
also love
Yeah.
birth moms and first families, and it doesn't diminish our experience. And making it adoptee centric,
Mm.
making
That's great.
vacations adoptee centric. And when we're all working towards that goal, I think that makes relationships with birth parents, it can make it um more co-journeying, that rather than feeling like we're somehow opposite. But we have
Mm.
the same goal, and that's for that child
Yeah.
to know they're loved.
Really, I think that's wonderful, very powerful, Sally. I think the most difficult part for adoptive parents is stepping out of their comfort zone and inviting someone into their personal space. So it's not easy. So I empathize. and at the same time understand, you know, what they might be coping with.
And imagine
Mm.
how hard, I can just, in Kim's situation, imagine how hard it would be to be a birth parent, and, you know, all the complexities that come with entering into that for, you know, the adoptive parent realm, or
Mhm.
adoptive family realm, I should say. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's a
Anyway,
good reminder too that they can step into choice and be able to, you know, communicate their needs too. So that's
mhm.
empowering. You know, if they know what they need ahead of time, that also gives them the ability to, you know, be able to communicate that and have a better experience too.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't want to just have the final word, but I have one more little thing I just thought about, is if people are listening to this, that it can ebb and flow, and that's been my experience as a coach with families,
Right.
that there can be a great vacation, and then the
Very,
next vacation might not be so great. Or maybe there's a year that there is a vacation and another year there isn't.
right,
And the relationships ebb and flow, and that's normal.
right. It's a
That
bad thing, right?
happens. Yeah, it
Right.
happens in every family. And so it doesn't mean we abandon it. If one year it's just really hard, it doesn't mean, well, we're not going to do that again. No, it means that we maybe will make some adjustments and tweaks, but we won't expect that it has to go great every time. And that we keep at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true in all families, in all vacations, and all people getting together.
Right.
You know, I know with all of my kids, when we go away, we have some great vacations. And then there's other times when we leave, we're like, we're never ever doing that again. But we
Right.
do. Thankfully, we show up again and again because you're right, things change. And that's an awesome reminder, especially on a topic like vacations that happen, you know, yearly and more often than that sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. That was great.
No, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.